Now that we understood SMTP, in that the message generated by Alice goes to its mail server via SMTP, and from Alice's mail server to Bob's mail server again via SMTP. The message is waiting in the receiver's mailbox at the receiver's mail server. What then? Originally, the way things were done is that the users used to log on to the mail server and execute a mail reader on the mail server itself. What do you think is the problem with this approach? This logging in works fine for a text-based mail reader, but if it's a GUI-based, then having to log in is not very convenient. Not only that, multimedia attachments are not easy to view, and if you want to look at the messages offline, again that's not feasible. Given all this, there was felt a need for mail access protocols. There are 3 ways in which you can access your mail: POP3, IMAP and HTTP. We will look at each in turn. POP3 is again a very simple protocol. It stands for Post Office Protocol. Given that it is so simple, its functionality is also rather limited. So the typical usage with POP3 is to access your mail server, retrieve all the emails, store the emails at the user's PC. That way you can read them offline and delete the emails on your mail server. By the way, you could also keep them on the mail server, but most mail readers delete the messages once you retrieve the messages because you want to save space on your mail server. POP3 is a stateless protocol in that it does not maintain any state across sessions. For example, it does not mark those messages that have been read or those messages that have been answered. That kind of state is not maintained as part of the mail server. Well, that is what I meant by limited functionality. So this POP3 also uses TCP and operates on port 110. Like in SMTP, it also goes through 3 phases. One is the authorization phase where the user is authenticated via username password. Then there is a transaction phase where the messages are retrieved. Some can be marked for deletion and you can also obtain some mail statistics. After this, once you do quit, the server is going to delete whatever messages you have marked for deletion. The main problem with this protocol is that it has poor support for remote multi-machine access. So what do I mean by this? Suppose this is the mail server. It has messages 1, 2, 3, 4 say, and you access the mail server from, let's say, host A, and you downloaded these messages 1, 2, 3, 4. As I mentioned, most implementations after they download, they are going to delete these messages from the mail server. So the mail server doesn't have any more messages. Then a few more messages have come. Let me label them 5, 6. And now you access the mail server from some other machine, host B. Again, you contacted it and you downloaded 5, 6 here. After which you again deleted them from the mail server. As you can see, your mail is now spread about on multiple machines, which is not desirable. Even if you have not deleted these messages, when you access them from different hosts, since POP3 does not maintain any state, you have no idea whether you read the messages, whether you replied to the messages, so on. So POP3 works best if there is only one machine from which you access the mail server. The alternative is IMAP. Before we get to that, let's again see a demo of POP3 in action. Again, it's a very simple protocol whereby I can show you a demo of how this works. So here is POP3 in action. My mailbox is located in surya.csc.iitb.ac.in. So I'm going to establish a TCP connection to my mail server on port 110, which is indicating that the protocol I'm going to use is POP3. In other words, on the mail server, there is a POP3 server listening on port 110. And I'm establishing a TCP connection to it. So let me enter. So I've got connected to Surya. Next starts the authorization phase, for which I need to specify who the user is. So I have to type in my username, which is Chebrolu. It says OK. Then I have to type in my password. I have just changed it to CS348 just for this demo. It won't stay CS348 for long, so don't even think about it. So let me type enter. So I'm logged in. Next starts the transaction phase. I can get a list of all my messages by typing this command list. So as you can see, there are plenty of messages in my mailbox. So the first one is the message number, and this is the length of the message. Now if I want to retrieve a message, I'm going to type RETR. Let me retrieve this 2451 message. So this is the previous spoofed message that I have sent. I can also delete messages by typing DELE. Let me delete this 2450 message. So it's been marked for deletion. After I'm done whatever interaction I want to do, retrieving more messages, deleting messages, so on, I can just quit, thereby close the connection. So as you can see, it logged me out, and whatever messages I have marked for deletion, it has deleted. So next time if I log in, I won't see that message. So that's how POP3 works. While we are at it, let's also look at how the mail readers are configured with these mail servers. So here is again my Thunderbird setting. So I'm going to look at my account settings. So if you want to see who your outgoing mail server is, so this is the mail server that is going to send emails to the outside world on your behalf. As you can see, that is smtp.csc.iitb.ac.in, and this is the port 25, and this has security enabled. And if you want to look at your incoming server, that you have to do server settings. So this is where your mailboxes are stored, and this server is imap.csc.iitb.ac.in, and it is operating on port 143. Again, security is enabled. There are a whole lot of other options you can configure as shown. So in this particular case, our outgoing mail server is different from our incoming mail server. That's perfectly fine because we are using two separate protocols, SMTP and IMAP. So IMAP, as defined in RFC 3501, provides a more complete and complex mailbox access. The difference between POP3 and IMAP can be best understood in the following fashion. POP3 is about retrieving mails from the mail server. The idea is not to keep the mails on the mail server, but to download and organize them at the user end. Whereas in IMAP, you want to manage the mails on the mail server itself. You can download mails for offline viewing at the user side, but the organization is managed as part of the mail server itself. When you download, you are just syncing it with the mail server. So in IMAP, emails are organized in multiple folders. There are also called mailboxes. There are user level mailboxes. Say user A, user B, user C. Here, for a given user A itself, he may have multiple mailboxes within. These are the folders, inbox or whatever other folders you create. Unlike POP3, IMAP maintains user state information across the sessions. In fact, that is its strength. So for example, this state could be the name of the folders, which messages map to which folder, whether messages have been read, messages have been replied to, so on. So IMAP also uses TCP and it listens on port 143, but if you are using security features, the port assigned is different, that is 993. Here are a few other interesting features of IMAP. IMAP clients stay connected. Unlike POP3, which connect, download and disconnect, IMAP clients are constantly connected to the server. This results in faster response time because whenever new messages come, you can quickly download them. IMAP also permits multiple email clients. By different clients, I don't mean different users. It's the same user but different readers. One may be from your laptop, one may be from your smartphone, so on, to simultaneously connect to the mailbox. So whatever changes you make on one reader will get updated on the mail server and thereby reflect on the other reader. Another very useful feature of IMAP is its ability to permit partial fetch. For example, you can just download the text and not attachments. This may be useful when you are operating over a low bandwidth link. Let's say a dial-up modem. This I have already mentioned. It keeps track of message status, whether they have been read to, replied to, whether something has been marked for deletion, so on. And it also permits server-side searches, in that you can search for messages with certain subject line or from a given user so on. I unfortunately can't show a demo of IMAP because it employs security features, so whatever is sent is encrypted. But I will encourage you to collect a trace and see how the message exchange happens between the client and the mail server. There is yet another way in which you can access the email, which is via the web. So Hotmail was the first web-based access that was introduced in the mid-1990s, and this became extremely popular that many other companies also started to provide this service. For example, now we have the service provided by Google, Yahoo, so on. The difference here is that the user agent now is a web browser which is going to interact with the mail server via the HTTP protocol as opposed to using SMTP or POP3 or IMAP. But notice that the mail servers still use SMTP to talk with each other. It is just the users that will use HTTP. So for example, if Alice were to use Thunderbird to send a message, she will send it to SMTP to her mail server, which will again send via SMTP to Bob's mail server. And this Bob may access this mail via the web interface via HTTP. But if Alice were to use a web browser, this would again be HTTP. This will be her mail server. This will again contact over SMTP to Bob's mail server. And then Bob can access this. So for example, if he's not using a web browser, let's say he's using IMAP, he can potentially access it in this fashion. So that's with respect to email. Email is a very widely used application. It needs two protocols, a mail transfer protocol given by SMTP and a mail access protocol, POP3 or IMAP. You can also use web from the user end to send and receive messages. So SMTP of interaction is ASCII based, involving the three phases mentioned before. And when you're accessing the emails, there is IMAP web access, which provide more features than the POP3 mail access. Next time you send an email, you know exactly what's happening with your email.